Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jar, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. We want to welcome all of you to this edition of Tough Talking Thursday. On Tough Talking Thursday tonight, we're going to have a great show for you. My guest, joining us is from Atlanta, Metro Atlanta, is Carl Famule. Carl, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Also joining us this time from the state of New Jersey is Wadei Powell. Wadei, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Our topic today is alternative leadership in moving Liberia forward. So in this edition of Tough Talking Thursday, we are going to be discussing the following. Because let me set the stage, right? All the time we talk about the issues facing the country. There are issues. Things are bad or things are this way or that way. Sometimes we forget to even delve into the issues. So tonight we're going to be discussing what are the issues? What are the issues that the country is confronting with for which we need, or according to my guest, we need an alternative leadership. If we get to the issue, we want to discuss who or what is responsible. What role does leadership play in addressing those issues? What is the we are government doing to address those issues? What is the we are government doing or not doing to address those issues? What will an alternative leadership do? These and more we're going to be discussing on tonight's edition of Tough Talking Thursday. Wadei, let me start with you. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great.
All right. And what's the latest in your heck of the wood?
Just spending some quality time with the family out on this side on vacation, checking in on friends I haven't seen in a while, and preparing to go back home and get back on the hustle.
Good. Carl, welcome. How was work today? And how prepared are you to discuss alternative leadership?
I am always prepared to discuss anything pertaining to Liberia. Work was great, and that's it.
We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia. And on Tough Talking Thursday, we talk tough. We say it as it is, and we don't beat about the bush. We want to make sure that our listeners too benefit and they tune in. We'll open the phone lines later on to call in so that you can express your opinion as well. Wadei, let me start with you. What is your understanding of alternative leadership and why is it needed?
I think alternative leadership or alternative anything is finding a better way, a more efficient way, a more effective way of doing things. In the context that we're speaking in, obviously this means that we need to look at more effective and more efficient leaders to be able to perform in the leadership roles that they're being placed in. And this is across the board. I know many times when we speak about leadership in Liberia, we speak about it within the context of the president, which is as a direct result of the imperial presidency that we have created over many, many years. But leadership is not just at that level, it's across the board, is in the government, is in the private sector, is in our homes, is in our schools, it's all around us. So how do we look at leadership from a standpoint of something that is more efficient and more effective than what we have now and what we have had over the years?
And Carl, the understanding there is just to continue from where they stop is meaning that the current leadership is not doing so well, and therefore alternative leadership is desired. Is that your understanding?
So, absolutely. I mean, the failure of leadership to uphold and function within the parameters of the law, which, our Constitution for our government leaders provides a term of reference for each position and each elected and appointed official. Then you have acts and laws that also, govern various agencies and how they were created. The problem that we're having, and the reason we need an alternative, is because we have people in place that are not able and prepared to do what's being asked of them. They don't have the capacity to do what's being, asked of them. What they've stepped up to do, they don't have the ability to do it. And it's a very unfortunate thing, but you cannot expect people who haven't prepared themselves educationally, professionally, in so many ways, to handle these huge tasks and responsibilities that they have no experience in. They have they don't even have a foundational knowledge base that they can draw upon and know what they need to know, right? So if you at least have some, background and experience, you will know what your shortcomings are. You'll know the kind of people you'll need to draw in to get things done. We don't even have that. We've come to a point in Liberia where the majority of people that have been put into positions of authority do not have the skill set that's necessary for them to perform in those roles. And, saying the word alternative makes it sound like, almost like we have something there and we're just trying to find something better. It's like we actually, even getting the bare minimum standard there would be an improvement upon what we already have right now. So, I'm not trying to, pick on those who are doing, their very best, but if you're not able to do something, your very best isn't good enough. I don't know how to perform surgery. So if I go in to operate on someone, my best is not going to be good enough. Disaster is going to happen. And it's not enough that I try very hard, because the consequence of my incompetence when it comes to performing surgery is somebody's either going to be injured or they're going to die. So that's how serious government is. People don't know what they're doing. I don't care how much they want to do it, how hard they want to try. They're not prepared. They don't have the skills to do what they're being asked to do.
Let's look at the issue, because it's very easy to say, well, people, they don't have the skills, or they're not prepared, or they're not even leaders before we even talk about alternative. So let's look at the issues. What are the issues, that will prompt such, description of who the leaders are? Let me start with you, Cole. What are the issues Liberia is facing right now?
I mean, let me just pick one out of a hat. I mean, the issues are overwhelming, but public safety and health. I believe the number one priority of a government is to make sure that the citizens are safe. You exchange some of your liberty, your independence, and become part of a society because there's supposed to be safety in some kind of security in being a citizen of a country. And the government has failed in the public safety sector. Public safety isn't only just being free from crime. Public safety also means that the food you eat, the air you breathe, the roads you drive on, the vehicles that you use, all of those things that protect your life and your well-being, those responsibilities, those basic responsibilities of government are not being met. So we would need to have people who are prepared to solve those problems, and leaders that are willing to take the very drastic measures to put some of these things in place. Wanting to do it and not understanding what needs to be done doesn't solve the problem. I saw the Inspector General for Commerce Ministry, looks like she wants to do something. She has, the intention of actually wanting to do something, but she doesn't understand how to go about it. And it's unfortunate, but that's how it.
Paul, let me stop you. What is informing this, that this person doesn't understand what they're doing? Where are you getting that from? Like in case of the Commerce Ministry?
From the government's own public posts.
Okay.
On social media, in the news, the government comes out, says that they've gotten, expired rice, and then they say the rice is what was the word they use? Unwholesome. I mean, what kind of outrageous term is that for you to use that doesn't even mean anything. Unwholesome food, what does that mean? Was it contaminated with maggots? What do you mean by unwholesome? It's dry grain. That's not going to have an expiration date on it. They're saying it expired. Dry grain doesn't have expiration dates, period. Nowhere in the world do they stamp expiration dates on grain. They'll have like a best by date or a use by date. And if it goes past that date, it doesn't mean it's unsafe for human consumption. What it means is it's not in the best condition. So it might not be as fluffy. The rice might not be as fluffy. It might be a little bit sticky. When you cook it, it'll stick together. It will not kill you. It will not harm you. It's not dangerous. And the question is, why would you take that quantity of food and dump it in a trash heap in a country where people are eating far worse things just to survive? And you don't have the skills or the technocrats capable of even understanding this. It is sickening. Who does that?
Thank you. Let me go to Wadei to talk about some of the issues.
Well, Dennis, for me, when you start to talk about the issues that highlight the lack of leadership in Liberia, I think it's important for us to go back to understand and define what this even means, right? We have a constitution that is the guiding principle or the guiding document that tells us what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to do it, who's supposed to do it, and so forth. Our country has three branches of government. The executive branch, which is the branch of government that's supposed to handle the day-to-day administration, if you will. The legislators or the legislature, and they're supposed to make the laws, and the judiciary, who are supposed to implement and interpret the laws. Right. Unfortunately, we have taken our constitution and turned it upside down because not one branch of government is functioning the way it's supposed to function, right? So the entire gamut of the three branches are in a leadership deficit position. So now let's take them one by one. And I'm going to start with the executive because unfortunately in Liberia, a lot of people feel, once again, going back to this imperial presidency, a lot of people feel that the executive is the end all and be all, when in reality it is not. But let's just take it within the context of how it is understood to be now. We have an executive who's, at the very, very basic structure is supposed to make sure that the people of the country are taken care of. Powell mentioned earlier the safety and security of people. That's a very basic function of the executive, right? Why is it that all year in, year out, we just celebrated 174 years of independence, right? Are we really independent? Why is it that after 174 years of independence, we have such a high percentage of illiteracy in the country, right? The question that begs is, how independent can a nation actually be when the people are not educated and the people are not self-sufficient and the people are reduced to begging as a means of basic survival? When the people cannot afford to send their children to school, even the government schools, which is supposed to be free, they cannot even afford to send their kids to that. And even sending their kids to those schools is a very substandard education at best that they're receiving. Why is it that we're in a country where health care is not readily available? A friend of mine a couple of weeks ago had an incident that happened to him around 9:30, 10 at night. And we all happened to be in a chat room and the information was put in there. So everybody started to reach out to whoever they could reach out to try to get him, some help. And then as if I tell you that with all of us in this room and all of the connections that we have and all of the phone numbers that we have, we could not find a facility that had a doctor on call at night. The medical facilities have nurses, no doctors. If there was any emergency that happened, then we need to pick up the phone and call the doctors. And someone even had some of the doctors' numbers and we're calling and nobody was picking up. Why do we have that situation? 174 years of independence. Why do we have a situation where the people of Liberia do not even really understand what their powers are under the very same constitution that govern us. Why do we not have a society of people who understand that they are actually the ones that have the power, and not the executive, not the president, not the lawmakers, not the judges? We, the people, have the power. Why do you think that is? I don't think that this is by mistake. This is by design. And this is because year in, year out, leaders have made it their job to ensure that the people are kept down. Because people who know who they are and who know what their rights are and what their responsibilities are able to stand up for themselves and say no.
Yeah.
We have to get to that place. Look at our judicial system. The judicial system is everything is for sale. If you don't have money to pay to get your case tried in Liberia, forget about going to court, because whoever wields the wallet wields the winning. Look at our lawmakers. Look at what's happening. It's a total embarrassment to even go out to anybody and say, you know, why are we not able to stand up and say, I'm a Liberian, and be proud of that? Why should we be in a situation to hang our heads when we say that we are Liberians?
Right.
It's a leadership deficit, and it's pervasive. It's not one person. It's not one administration. It's consistent over a period of time, administration after administration coming in and not developing people, not following the laws.
All right. And it looked like we can take the whole night just to enumerate the problem. But let me ask this. With everything that you've said so far, and I believe there is more, who or what is responsible?
Is that for me or is that for
Yeah, let me start with you, because you kind of tried to hint on that already.
In any society, Dennis, responsibility lies with everyone. But at the end of the day, the reason why we form a collective as in a country, and the reason why we agree to elect officers of the government, officials of the government, is because we have now said that we will have a point where we go and we select these people to represent us. And although as citizens we all have a role to play, but the major role of making sure that our country moves forward is on the government. They are the ones that have the authority that we have vested in them. They are the ones that have the money due to the taxes that we pay and many other funding that comes in from international partners. They are the ones that control that. They are the ones that set the national agenda. They are the ones that implement the national agenda. So the highest level of responsibility lies with the government.
Thank you. Call who or what, and I'm intentional by saying what is responsible. Oh, Call, you're on mute. Unmute yourself, please.
Okay, sorry. So I agree with 90% of what Wadei said. I'm just throwing out a percentage. Doesn't necessarily mean it's accurate. But my biggest disagreement, not disagreement, but where I would stray from what she said is when it comes to who has the greatest responsibility. The greatest responsibility actually falls on the citizens. And this is why I think so. Liberia is a democracy. It means it's ruled by the people. The people who are empowered are citizens. These people, their limitations, their greed, their shortcomings, it's a reflection of the society as a whole. So people tend to empower people that are like themselves. And until Liberians themselves take responsibility for their own thoughts, their own actions, their own destiny, until we ourselves wake up. Nobody, growing up in the West, growing up in a Western society, the idea that government is supposed to solve your problem is a bit foreign. And most of us Liberians are Protestant. Most Liberians are Protestant. We have some Catholic Liberians, we have some Muslim Liberians and other, religions, but most Liberians are Protestant. And Protestants have what they call a work ethic. I don't know where we went wrong in Liberia, but a lot of the people who settled Liberia were Methodist, Pentecostal, not Pentecostal, but Presbyterian, Baptist. These people had Protestant work ethic. They understood the fact that you have to till the soil, you have to feed yourself, you have to feed your family, you have to take responsibility. And it's out of that taking responsibility that you then empower people of like minds to make decisions for the, good decisions for the benefit of the whole. We've lost that. We have almost a subservient, slavish mentality. And no government is going to serve your interests when you yourself as a citizen feel that you're not worthy of respect. When you surrender your dignity, you surrender your power, whether it's because of poverty or not. There's other countries that have poor people that conduct themselves with more dignity than we do. In Liberia, you have very bright, educated young people that will sell their souls literally just so that they can be in favor of some politician. So it is an integrity, it is a cultural issue. Our culture has deteriorated to such a point where people are not even trying to do the right things anymore. Everybody just wants to be a big boy, to be a big girl. Everybody just wants to survive. So the type of mentality, the type of cultural drive that it takes to elevate a society, the type of renaissance that we need can never be a top-down situation. It has to be cultivated in the society. So a lot of countries that have transformed themselves have started with human capital. And it's a long process. It's not something that a government can just come and do. So you've got people who start this process by trying to enlighten people, by trying to bring people to a realization that they deserve better. And that better that they deserve is something that they themselves are responsible to attain, to achieve, to work towards. Nobody else is responsible to do that for you. Until we start to bring that message into people, they're not going to get it. I lived in Antigua, which is a small Caribbean island in the Eastern Caribbean when I was very young, right out of college. And I remember being in Antigua, and because they had, and they had a dictatorial government. At that time, they had only had two presidents. They got independent, I think, in 1982 or something like that. They only had two prime ministers. One was a father, one was a son. So the government was messed up. But the people had a certain type of dignity to them, that even if you saw someone living in a 2-room wooden house, it was clean, there's flowers planted, they painted. The dignity on Sunday morning, if you see the people dress and come out of this house, you'd be shocked. We don't even clean our environments. So our problem in Liberia is one where the culture has deteriorated so much that the people don't have the type of dignity and self-respect it takes to determine their own destiny. And that's what we need someone the type of leader, where I do agree with Wadei as far as leadership is concerned. We need the type of leader that is going to spark that type of transformation in the minds, the cultures, and the hearts of Liberian people, for them to once again believe in the state, in the country, in the dream, in this fabulous constitution that was written. Our constitution is close to perfect. People like to cuss Liberia and the way it was established. Liberia was established, if you compare what Liberia did when it was established compared to what the United States did when it was established, Liberia was a model. The United States committed genocide against its indigenous people. But if you listen to a typical Liberian talk about Liberian history, the people came and enslaved us. They use stupid, uninformed language like apartheid to describe the founding principles of their country. That is not an accident. Another thing I agree with Wadei on, it is not an accident that the entire nation has been brainwashed to hate the country. The entire nation has been brainwashed to hate the purpose for which Liberia was established. And for anyone to say anything good about Liberia, you are attacked. You are attacked. What country in the world raises their kindergartners, their elementary students, their high school students, their university students to hate their country?
And Cole will come to that because important, about this hit, because sometimes we don't distinguish between the current administration and the country. And so love for country means love for the president, but we'll come to that because it's very important. I just wanted to point you back to because Wadei was saying that this is by design, it falls on the leaders. You said the only place you differ where it falls on the people, but then you came back and said, well, it takes that leadership to spark it, right? So
right. So that leadership.
So I don't get exactly what you're driving at. You were saying one thing.
Wadei already defined leadership in the beginning.
Right.
He said, leadership can be government, it can be in the private sector, it can be in the community, it can be in the church. Leaders are not always in government. So when I say people can be inspired, it doesn't have to be a president that inspires people and sparks a renaissance of thought. It could be a pastor, it could be an imam, it could be a community grassroots organizer, it could be a business person, So leadership, if someone has the charisma and the amount of patriotism it takes to inspire people towards action, then that's what it is. I mean, if you look at the United States, change has never come from leadership that was elected into office. It has always been from leaders within the private citizens themselves, whether it be pastors, whether it be, you look at Malcolm X, look at Fannie Mae.
Right, but it has to take Lyndon Johnson, right, to sign it finally. So it still comes back to
Lyndon Johnson was pressured by the people who empowered him in the first place. So if the citizens are not awake, the government does not act in advance of the citizens. They react to the advance of the citizens, right? So if the citizens themselves, for example, I'm going to go back to this rice dumping thing. If the citizens don't know better and they think this is a good thing, they're going to applaud at people who are disrespecting them. If the citizens don't know that the legislature is not supposed to function in the capacity that of the executive, and they're not supposed to implement projects, when the legislature, when the lawmakers issues money to itself and starts pretending to be the executive branch of government, the ignorant citizens are going to applaud because they don't know any better. But if the citizens know better, these things don't happen. So at the end of the day, we have to transform ourselves. It begins with taking responsibility for ourselves.
Go ahead, Wadei, but I want to add to this. So let's talk specific now, because we already defined leadership. You did that very well. And in all these things, we see that leadership plays a role. So when it comes to the current government that we have, or the current leadership, you lay out all three. What are they doing or not doing for which we have those issues, or those issues still not been solved?
Dennis, what's the question in there?
Let's look at our current leadership. What are they doing to solve the issues, or what are they not doing?
That's a good question. I live there, and as far as I can see, they're not doing anything to solve the issues. They haven't even acknowledged the issues. First of all, when you hear government officials speak, you wonder if you and they live in the same country, because they say everything is good, everything is okay. But yet you see all around you, the poverty, the breakdown in the systems. But when the Minister of Finance, for example, gets on in front of the people to speak, we're doing great. You see the government officials on social media. Liberia is functioning perfectly. So in order for you to even start to address issues as a leadership, you have to first acknowledge that those issues exist. And unfortunately, this administration refuses to acknowledge that those issues exist. This administration, from a very early point and a very early stage, refused to bring people on who knew what they were doing. And instead, they chose to appoint people to positions simply because they were a part of the political party and that they had been in the struggle for the longest time. That's great. But there are many, many people that have been in the struggle and still also know what they're doing. What happens to all of those people? We have a plethora of people that have been absolutely misplaced. You cannot get blood from a turnip. Cohen mentioned this before. You're not going to send a plumber to do the job of a carpenter. So why would you put someone in a position of authority of development who has absolutely no skill set, no track record? And when I say track record, I mean a successful track record of having done this at any point in their lives. And you take this person and you put them in charge of national development agenda in the country, and you expect that they're going to perform. It's not going to happen. Right. So from where I sit, the government is doing absolutely nothing to fix the situation because the government absolutely believes that there's nothing wrong. Now, what I would suggest in a case like this, they need to wake up and open their eyes. They need to figure out what it is that they want the next 2 years of their administration to be. From where I stand, it's going to be 2 years, and that's going to be the end of it because they have performed dismally. And it's quite evident that they have no clue on how to take Liberia forward.
And to Carl's point, I have lived through number of presidents since Doe. Tolbert, not so much. But all of the presidents, they seem to be empowered by people. People support them, and they are not alone. I mean, there's no president or no leadership that gets up in the morning and just maybe the 100 or 1,000 person doing everything. It's the people, right? So, Carl, it comes back to your point of the people, because these people are the leadership we talk about, or the We Are government, for instance. They are not alone. The people that are in the streets and singing all the praises, they are just like you and me.
But Dennis, you got to look at it for, you see, humans, we are psychological people, right? Conditioning is everything. We are who we are because of how we've been conditioned to be, because of the environment that we have come up in, right? There's nobody that comes out of their parents' wombs, their mother's womb, that comes out and knows automatically what is the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do. These are value systems that are taught to us, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have what I normally have begun to refer to in Liberia, if you have a society of self-reared people, the value system is not going to be what it ought to be, right? A lot, unfortunately, our young people have been left to their own devices. The poverty level in the country is so much that people are pretty much saying to the young people, you better go out there and figure it out on your own because I can't help you figure it out. Now, any leader who wants to succeed in national development must focus on developing people. You will never have a developed nation if the people are not developed. I don't care how many skyscrapers you have. I don't care how many roads you have or bridges or the finances of everything. If your people are not developed, you will never have a developed nation. And this is one of the things that I was very disappointed in the previous administration about. There was not enough time spent on, imagine if we had spent 12 years of the previous administration developing people. We would have had a whole new generation of people that were strong. This administration has come along and has even performed worse than the previous administration when it comes to people development. The very same people that stand in these long lines to elect the officials of government, from the president to the representative to the senators and whatnot. The very same people that stand in line to elect these people are the very same people that as soon as they get there, they forget about the people. But here's the thing. These people have been forgotten about for so long that they actually believe that is the only way for it to be. They have not seen anything else. They have not seen a leader give a damn about their people. So for them, this is normal. It's normal to expect that you will elect a leader, they will get to wherever they're going to, and they will do what they want to do. But as long as that leader want to go to knock on their gate or their door, they give me a little $10, a little $15 to help pay my children's school fee, or they give me what's kind of scholarship or whatever. These little handouts, our people have been made to accept or to believe that handouts is the way it is supposed to be. We do not have a functioning society. We don't have a functioning government. Everything is broken.
And Cole, let me ask you, when did this all start? Because you see, it's very easy to look at the current government and say, hey, there you are, you're doing everything wrong. I believe this did not just start.
I'm going to say something, and it's going to take us off track, but this is what I believe. I think a lot of this stems from slavery. It stems from pre-Liberia. It stems from, the chaos that was brewing 150, 200 years ago. This is why history and context is important. We always talk about we've been a republic, how long we've been a country. We always talk about that. And the majority of the people that reside within the boundaries of the republic carry generational trauma. And we always say, oh, the people that came from America, they were former slaves, so they brought a colonial mentality and abused people. But because we don't know what was happening here before 1822, we don't understand the horrific upheaval. I mean, you had almost the complete genocide of the Day people before 1822. You had massive migration. You had constant warfare for at least about a 90 to 120 year period on the Grain Coast, where there was consistent slave raids. People talk about, Suakoko. Who was Suakoko fighting when she asked for the assistance of the Liberian government? She was fighting other Pella people.
Yeah.
And that fighting was not small fighting. We're talking about burning of whole clans, massacres in the hundreds and even thousands over a period of just a few months. And this kind of thing went on for generations. And our people have a problem with passing information that is bad on. I'm from northern Liberia. I'm a Monogara. I'm from Nimba. Our people don't tell us bad things. When bad things happen, they don't tell their children, their grandchildren. They don't pass on bad news. When something unspeakable happens, it remains unspoken. So a lot of this is not even in the oral history because they don't even want to repeat the trauma. It's like when a woman has a baby and the baby dies, they never speak of it again. This is a cultural tendency. So people are walking around with trauma that they're not even aware of. And when the Civil War occurred, to show you how generational trauma and how history and context is important, we literally picked up where our ancestors left off. We put on the wigs, the masks, the war paint, and went back in time to 1800 to 1790 and started gutting people open and started behaving in such a manner that shocked people. Where did you get this from? But go back and read the books that were written 180 years ago about what we were doing. It describes exactly what happened during the Civil War. And I was like, the more I studied, I said, what? This is who we've been. Why didn't anyone tell us this? And the reason history is important, if we understood that context, we would have never reached to where we were in the war. 1980 would have never happened. Because Liberians wrongly believe that we're living in some kind of utopia.
Call your voice is kind of a little scratchy there. Probably someone call you.
Yeah, I think I was getting a call. So
yeah.
we're living in some kind of utopia.
So you can turn it down, turn it back up because right now, and then you can put it on do not disturb.
Okay. How's that? Is it a little better?
No. Maybe you can go out and come back in.
You mean to leave the broadcast and come back in?
Yeah.
Okay.
That would make it better.
It's too late. Baby, go to bed, I don't need your tabata. Baby, oh, your tabata. I'm gonna go away, your tabata. My baby, oh, I don't need your tabata. My baby, oh. Baby, I'm tired, I don't need your tabata. Baby, oh, your tabata. I'm gonna go away, your tabata. My baby, oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching Tough Talking Thursday. Our topic today, alternative leadership to move the country forward. My guest, Wadei, Powell, and Call family. If you want to take part in the discussion, please call the number on your screen. And that number is right there in the scrolling text. That is 605-313-6004. The code is 791403. As Wadei has called was saying, this issue started, it's very easy to point finger at the current administration. And that's why sometimes if we think who is responsible, we need to go to the what is responsible for the situation we're in. Your thoughts?
Absolutely, Dennis. But let's not make a mistake. The current administration is responsible for what is currently happening, right? You can't say because historically that this has been the case in the country that you have a clean or an excuse to continue what is happening. Every administration that comes into power should be ready and well equipped to remove us from the bad situation that we were in previously and take us forward. So the fact that historically Liberia has been in this position for a very long time does not negate the responsibility of the current administration to move us forward. That's what they signed up for. Now, having said that, Powell is absolutely correct when she says that in order for us to understand where we are going, we must understand where we're coming from. I'll tell you this. I went to school in high school, junior high school in Liberia. And throughout high school in Liberia, our social studies was Western civilization and American history. We never learned our history. It's only in the last 10 years or so, me personally have embarked on this personal journey to understand where Liberia came from. How was Liberia formed? All of this argument that we have amongst ourselves as Liberians about who Liberia belongs to, who's native to Liberia, and who are the Congo people. If we really go back in our history, it is there. There is practically no one in Liberia right now that did not migrate to this land called Liberia. The original people that we had in Liberia in the 13th century or the land or the soil known as Liberia right now were people known as pygmies, and they don't even exist anymore. Everybody that is in Liberia right now came as a result of some sort of migration. So when we use this whole situation of the indigenous or the natives or the Congos to further divide us, we need to go to our history and understand where all of us come from. The Malian Empire, the Songhai Empire, the trade that was going across the Grain Coast, all of that. This is what produced us. Now, some people came from that result, and some people came from the ship, and some people, like people from Barbados, were actually invited. But it doesn't change the fact that we all migrated to this place called Liberia. So, who really is indigenous? If we really want to answer that question. But once again, that's just one point that you bring up to understand that history is so important. And you don't understand why we are in the position that we're in right now until you go back to the history and understand what that means. The psyche of our people is very important. And what makes us tick now can be found in our history. Kowe is absolutely correct when she talks about the atrocities that happened, during the civil crisis. And it left us wondering, what happened? This is not the nature of Liberian people. What happened? And we were blaming other people, our neighboring countries, for introducing this sort of behavior to Liberia. But when you go in our history books, and not in history books, when you go into the history of Liberia, you find that this is indeed what happened in the past. And for some reason or another, or maybe the introduction of what is known as civilization, those behaviors just remain dormant. They didn't go away. They just remained dormant and silent, and it just needed someone to spark it, to bring it back to life.
So what does that have to do with what's happening now?
It has a whole lot to do with what's happening now. Two things. Number one, we have not understood and we have not properly appreciated all of the wrongs of the past administrations and the rights of the past administrations to understand what is relevant to move Liberia forward. In the past, since I can remember from Tubman time up until now, we've killed all of our previous presidents, with the exception of now we've killed. But our previous presidents, our recent previous presidents, have been killed, with the exception of Madam Sirleaf. I thank God that at least now we are returning back to a situation where presidents can leave the office and not worried about being assassinated and whatnot. But have we actually gone back to see what did Ellen do that was right, and what did she do that was wrong? What did Taylor do? What did Dole do? What did Tauber do? What did Tubman do? And going all the way back, it was not all bad. It was not all good. But have we learned anything from our history that we can bring forward? And have we recognized the where we have gone wrong, right, to correct those things? One of the things that needs to be corrected, and I don't see any leadership that has done it. As a matter of fact, in recent years, it has gotten even worse. There has been no leadership that is talking about uniting Liberians.
Good. And Wadei or Cole, you can come into. I think one of the problems there is what we are discussing today. Alternative leadership, because we always in a hurry to change one government over the other, or we always in a hurry to say, well, this one was bad, and so we can't even talk about it. There is almost always no appreciation of the immediate past, right? Everything is bad and we need something new. Right, Carl?
I mean, so the reason there's no appreciation of the immediate past is because everything's hyper politicized, right? Yeah. So that's a little bit different. Some of the problem with the way we process information is the way that we're educated in Liberia, or miseducated. A lot of times we're not taught to think for ourselves and analyze things for ourselves. We're taught to memorize and mimic. So our education system, for the most people, I mean, except for the few who were fortunate to go, we did have some very good institutions, but there were very few and far between, and they only catered to a very elite group of people, for the most part. If you were very fortunate to be in, some of those schools, you had better instructors and you were taught in a way that you were being prepared to think so that you could lead in the future, right? If you went to CWA in the 1960s, you were being raised as a future leader. You were being trained as a future leader. But the majority of the curriculum for the country was geared towards making good workers for Firestone and other plantations. It wasn't, the curriculum was not geared towards making good citizens, but good workers, right? So they really dumbed down the curriculum.
Oh, that's an overstatement.
It really isn't. I mean, stuff is documented. This is what I've studied. This is not something
like we're training people to just find workers for Firestone.
That's basically how the curriculum did that. I mean, that was Doris Banks' mission, was to basically dumb down the curriculum.
Right, Doris Banks was, she wrote.
She was an American. She was her mission during Tubman's era was to really just dumb down the curriculum, come up with some folklore and some feel good stories, and basically create a false sense of history. The reason I'm bringing it up.
No, I think Doris was just incompetent, but go ahead.
I don't think she was. If you look at the way that she was brought into Liberia, that's a different show. That woman was incompetent. She was on a mission and she succeeded. So, there's a reason for that. There's a reason why your children, my children, the children growing up in America are learning about Thanksgiving the way they're learning about it, and Christopher Columbus. These things are not accidental. That's how countries conscientize citizens and control citizens, is by but restructuring history so that people have a certain mindset. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So people, for the most part, are taught to memorize. They're shamed if they ask questions. That is built into the curriculum and the way that we teach in Liberia. It is also a cultural thing, right? If you start to be innovative, you start to think differently from the norm, you could even be accused of witchcraft, right? You're ostracized. It's considered a very bad thing for you to be innovative in your thought process. So all of that type of thing, if you have, someone on the radio every day for 6 months repeating something, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is bad, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is bad, you're going to say the same thing because you have been taught to mimic what you hear, not to think for yourself, not to look around you and see if there was improvement in your life between 2006 and 2017, right? You're not going to analyze that for yourself. You're going to mimic what you've been hearing instead of looking around your environment and making your own assessment. It's just how it is. And it's the same thing in America too, right? If you repeat something long enough, people just accept it to be reality instead of observing the world for themselves. It's much easier. So, that's why we look at the recent past the way we do, is because that's what we've been told to do. Which gets back to my original point about us, needing to have this kind of renaissance of thought. I'm going to say something very quickly. I don't want to hog the time, but when children go to school in Asian countries and in Western countries, whether it be India, whether it be China, whether it be the United States or Australia, from the time that child is about 3 years old to enter preschool, they are conditioned and taught certain things. The first thing they're taught is loyalty to their country. The United States starts teaching their children to be patriotic from the age of 3 when they enter preschool. You start learning that your loyalty is to the United States government, to the Constitution at 3 years old in this country. China, it's at birth, they start brainwashing their children to be China first thinkers. We don't do that in Liberia. It's not a bad thing. That's what governments do so that they can maintain, some sense of that's what governments do so that they can maintain some sense of cohesion in the society, right? Yeah. The reason the Native Americans or the Black Americans or the oppressed classes in the United States didn't go hang all the government officials on a beach in New York is because they understood that they could work through the system to correct it for themselves because of the way they were conditioned. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So in Liberia, we don't have that. We've been taught hate, hate, hate. These people are evil. These people are imperialists. They come, they hang them on the beach. They killed leaders that had been prepared to lead without a trial, and people were cheering in the streets.
Thank you. Let me bring in some of our viewers with their comments. Mm-hmm. This is a long one from Stanley Thomas Sewon. Alternative doesn't necessarily mean better or good. We did that in 2017, which brought in the Yeyia government, but see where we are. Most of the people we have in the current government were once in the previous government, and knowing most of the people around both Boakai and Cummings were in the previous government too. My concern is alternative to what? Are we talking about replacing what we have in the current government with what we had in the previous government? That's Stanley Sewon. So mark that down so you can respond. Solomatu Duncan, you didn't choose an alternative based on experience. You chose an alternative based on popularity, and let's give him a chance. Joe Moyu, the country is in a crisis when it comes to the standing of its institution. Then the judiciary is broken. That means that the prospect of foreign direct investments are dim. Who would want to invest in a country where contracts are property rights and property rights are not protected? Salamatu Duncan, if you are emotionally attached to your tribe, religion, or political leading to the point that truth and justice become secondary considerations, your education and exposure is useless. If you cannot reason beyond petty sentiment, you are a liability.
Yeah.
Wadei, you are smiling. Give me 1 minute of your response.
Well, I kind of kind of agree with a lot of the comments that were just read. I wanna go back to the first comment where the guy said that I think he said that we had alternative.
So alternative to what?
In 2017, and this is what we have right now. I think well, sometimes we listen and we hear half of a statement and we forget the other half of a statement, right? Alternative, he is right, does not mean better or worse. And I think when we first prefaced this, when we first started having this conversation, we prefaced it by saying that within the context of moving the country forward, we are looking for alternative leadership that is more efficient, and more effective. Mm-hmm. So I don't know where the confusion came in on. I mean, more efficient and more effective, it means better. So I just want to clarify that. But at the end of the day, right? We as Liberians, let's divide us into two buckets: the citizens and the government, right? Mm-hmm. On a citizen side, we have not determined what it is that we want for the country. There is no collective vision for Liberia. There is no collective thoughts of what Liberia is supposed to be. If you take 10 Liberians and put them in one room, you will get 10 ideas of what Liberia is supposed to be. We do not have a nationalistic view of any one thing. You take 10 people who say, we need change, 10 Liberians. And you took those 10 Liberians and you put them in a room, I guarantee you will get 10 different definitions of what change is. But one of the things that is so pervasive about our conversations and when we talk about change and when we talk about leadership and whatnot, we never talk about it from the standpoint of this sacrifice that we all need to make in order to transform Liberia. We never talk about it from the standpoint of what my role is in this process. We always talk about it from the standpoint of what you are supposed to do. We never look at what we are supposed to do in this entire thing. We never look at it from the standpoint of there's a collective responsibility to taking care of this country. I said to somebody the other day, I said, Liberia, I don't know about anybody else. We got a lot going on in Liberia, but I know Liberia has been kind to me. And where I am in my life right now, I am going to spend the rest of my time trying to be kind to Liberia. And for me, that being kind to Liberia is not based on friendship. It's not based on familial relationships. It's not based on political parties. It's not based on individuals that I support. It is based on my firm belief in what we need to do to move this country forward. And if it means that on one issue or another, I agree with someone in my party or I agree with someone in another party, it's not about individualism. It's about what is right and what is wrong. And there is no gray in that area.
And I'm going to test you on that later on as the show continues.
Absolutely.
Dolake Jonathan say, great to see you, Carl. I trust your ability. Continue. The citizenry are not informed and are not willing to use available information to change. Francis say, well said, Carl. It serves the current government well to lie about our history to deny our past glory on the global stage. Even the poorest of the poor back in the day were proud of themselves as Liberian. You could not visit any villages that were not pristine. People took pride in their homes and environment. Our people no longer know their rights as citizens. Liberian children are competitive in school because they enjoy the learning experience. The government glorifies ignorance. Francis, I don't know if we pass glory, maybe. Julian Duncan can say, I'm listening, and this is so important. Somebody is calling on Emma Dennis to come. Julian Duncan Cassell, Liberian women can lead. Let me take call before I bring you in. Let me take one caller. Let me bring in one of our callers. Caller, your name and where you calling from. You're live on Focus on Liberia. Caller, go ahead. I think the caller is listening to the radio there.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, go ahead. You're live.
Okay, this is Jerome Gaiman.
Jerome, lower your TV or what you're listening to. There's a feedback.
Okay, let me.
I know you are watching us on the big screen. Please lower that.
I'm listening to two beautiful ladies here. Very smart. I don't want to delve into the 200-year history. I want them to talk about the prevailing issues in the country. I'm looking at the present budget, and out of the present budget, we have about $230 million that is set aside for a development, and the rest is recurring expenditure. And bulk of that goes to the legislative body. Basically, a bulk of the money goes to that body, with nothing left for national development, education, healthcare, and search. Could you please speak to that? Because these are the issues, these are the areas that we need to touch if we want to move the country forward. No plan is going to work if we don't have the resources to move the country forward. From what I'm looking at here, it's pathetic. Nothing else is going to happen when we have about 70 to 80% of the total budget allocated just for us, ourselves, and nothing for the people.
Thank you. Paul, you want to take that and the comment we read earlier?
Yeah, so the government is a inverted pyramid when it comes to resources, and then the country's natural pyramid. So the people at the top, they receive the bulk of the resources in the country. And there was something I read about Grand Creek County and their GDP just from the county, what the county produces and what the county pays its elected officials, its senators and its representatives. And it was astonishing. So Grand Crew cannot even pay its own senators and representatives what it produces. I want you to let that sink in. So Grand Crew County, the money that it pays to maintain its elected officials is more than what the county produces. That was actually true in 2011. It's probably even worse now. So that is Liberia. We're in a situation where the recurring expenses, government is too big, it's huge, it's incompetent, it's dysfunctional, and it is the greatest employer in the country. So people get up in the morning, get dressed up, they go to collect a paycheck for doing something that 10 other people are also being paid to do incorrectly. And that is the problem. So if we were really supposed to resolve this as citizens, we would need to come up with a referendum to resolve some of this. Lawmakers should not be making 800-900 times what the average professional in the country makes. You cannot earn $200,000 a year when doctors are making $10,000 a year. That doesn't happen in Nigeria. As much as Nigeria has all this oil wealth, and Nigeria has homegrown billionaires, excess doctors, excess teachers, their lawmakers are not paid the way that ours are. And their lawmakers are qualified, educated people. Most of them have PhDs, actually. But to get all of that aside, their lawmakers are also probably corrupt, but at least they're educated and they understand how to interpret laws. And they're not allocating money to themselves to do something that they're not supposed to do. So we're in a situation in Liberia where we're paying people who are not capable of doing what we want them to do, and we're paying them ridiculously. That again falls on the citizens. These people are not going to correct it themselves. They are not going to go sit in chamber and fix this themselves. So the citizens need to make it happen. We need to make sure that we're empowering people that are going to go in there and do what we want them to do. We need to draft legislation and present it to our lawmakers and say, push this idea. We want this referendum on the table to reduce these salaries across the board. Citizens have to pressure government through every means necessary to do what they're supposed to do. It is the civic responsibility. We talk about a failed state. Citizens are failing the state. It is Liberian citizens that are failing themselves. Stand up for yourselves. Put apart these little petty jealousies. Think about your children. Think about your grandchildren. The caller said we should stop talking about history. Every great country in this world is where they are as a result of history and planning their future. The United States planned to be where it is today 100 years ago, 200 years ago. It didn't happen by accident. And if people want to know what direction the country is going in, all they need to do is look back at history. Whenever you want to destroy a country, you sever it from its history. We have to go back to the fork in the road and see where we made the wrong turn, as Dr. Clark used to always say. And we need to reconcile that. We need to fix it. So it is important. History is, the present that we live in is a direct result of history. And if you don't understand what happened in the past, you will not understand the present, because it is organized the way it is as a direct result of what happened yesterday. The legislature is dysfunctional and organized the way it is because, I mean, it's a long story. I'm not going to bore you with this, but bottom line is, we all know that the government is dysfunctional. There's way too many government employees for the size of the country and the size of the budget. We need to start thinking about how we're going to grow the private sector. We need to start thinking about Liberians utilizing their own resources, their own raw materials, their own human resource to produce their own wealth. I agree that we need foreign investment, but we need to invest in ourselves. We have the capacity, we have the ability. We need to start reaching out to our own citizens within the country, in the diaspora, to build ourselves up for ourselves. We cannot sit down and act like we're little children and some adult needs to come from an adult country somewhere and come and help us. It has, the one beautiful thing that the war did, and even before the war in 1980, a lot of us have gone to the same schools that the best and the brightest of them have gone to. So there's a lot of Liberians who are brilliant, but they are extremely frustrated. I talk to people that I look up to, my peers that I look up to, and they say things like, you know what, Ma, I got my children to think about, I'm tired with those people. Because the moment you put your hand up and you say you want to do something for Liberia, the first thing they come with their fake corruption allegations. Oh, that one they can see. Oh, they want to come from America, the other one want to come from Asia, that one want to come from Europe. We have to stop this nonsense. But these are the same people that start talking about, oh, we want France to come invest. But you don't want your own citizens to come invest?
That's a whole...
to come invest? But you're looking to France? You think the French are going to come to Liberia for your benefit?
No.
You think direct foreign investment is for your benefit? It's not.
Yeah, you're right.
I lived in Antigua for all those years. I never heard, Antigua's a tiny little country. Yeah. I never one day heard anyone in that country say anything about, oh, we need direct foreign investment. You know what they used to think, how their mindset was? Let these tourists come so we can exploit them and extract from them what we need.
Exactly. Let's deal with the last three questions that I have for you here, because we're talking about alternative leadership. So my question to you is, what will an alternative leadership do to address those issues aforementioned? And if you think you have the answer, think about, how do we get this alternative leadership? Why don't you go first?
I think perhaps we answer some of these questions in advance of the questions being asked. We kind of talked about how to get to this point in the earlier part of the show. But once again, there's no magic bullet that's gonna hit everything and solve all of our problems, right? So we talked earlier about the role that we as citizens need to play, that we have responsibilities in ensuring that Liberia gets to where it needs to get to, right? Whether it's a collective coming up with a collective idea on what is needed, whether it's in agreement that we need to put unity over a division, whether it's an agreement that we need to pick one thing, for example, that we're going to say no matter where we come from, whether we're indigenous, whether we're Congo, whether we're local Liberia, whether we're diaspora Liberia, whatever it is, if you're a Liberian, this is the one thing that we all agree that unifies us, and this is what our priorities should be going forward. Whether it's sitting and identifying, yes, Liberia has everything that is wrong with it. I mean, if I were to sit down and start talking about the problems that we have, I could come up with a shorter list of the problems that we don't have, right? But at the end of the day, let's pick one problem and try to address it. If you were to say to me today, Wadei, if you were a leader in Liberia and had the authority and you could champion something and you had the capacity to fund, what would your focus be? Human capacity building, hands down. Develop people. Give people a fighting chance. Stop leaving our people to be beggars. Help people develop their minds. That is the only way we strengthen the country.
Exactly.
That is the only way.
So how do we get this alternative leadership?
In order to do that, we have to, and I'm going to get to that in a minute, but I want to focus a little bit more because I want to drive this point home.
Okay.
We have to focus. I mean, we have to start as Liberians, as regular Liberians, average Liberians. If you look at any given day on my Facebook page, I've just really started just talking to Liberians. What do we want? What does this mean for us? How can we come together? What do we need for the young people? We need to start focusing on having those types of conversations as opposed to focusing on the kind of political conversations that we have gotten used to having, which now has made everybody and every conversation denigrate into cussing each other. We can't get beyond cussing each other to get to the point where we are even able to find common grounds.
Right.
To the point that we are so divided politically that even there's a mental block that is preventing us from even talking about the things that we do agree on, right? So yes, we do need to get involved in politics, but we must not let politics determine what is right and what is wrong. And we need to start having these conversations at a local level, whether it be a district level, a county level, a national level, at a diaspora level. What do we want for Liberia? Put politics aside. Put individuals aside. Put political parties aside. What is it that we want for Liberia, and what is it going to take for that to happen? That's on the citizens' side. Another thing that we as citizens need to stop doing is to stop listening to everything that everybody else has to say about these candidates that we elect and start doing your own homework.
Yep.
Stop letting somebody else tell you John Brown is good. Because at the end of the day, you don't know that for a fact. And you're going to go out there and you're going to cast your vote for John Brown, and John Brown may be a murderer. But because you have not taken the time to even understand who John Brown is, what John Brown stands for, what is John Brown's track record, has John Brown even been successful at anything, John Brown not ever hold a job, how can you take someone who has never worked a day in their life in any kind of environment and take them and put it in the legislature? My people, how? Then we expect what? You cannot expect people to perform beyond what they are innately capable of doing. So we have a legislature today because this is what we have asked for. We have set the bar of expectation so low, and we are getting exactly what we are getting. Oh, I'm going to go vote for that person because he's from my village. But my cousin part, brother. I know I vote for the person that I go knock on your door, he will give me $5. That is not how we proceed. Now let's look at it from the government side.
Wadei, I want you to conclude, especially on the second part.
Yeah. So on the government side now, we have this, and I want to focus on this administration right now because that's what we have. This administration has 2 years, a little over 2 years left to go under its belt. Are they going to acknowledge that there is a problem? Or are we just now saying we're gonna slide on through the next 2 years, pray, keep our fingers and our toes, everything crossed that, and nothing, goes out of hand, and just wish that we survive to get to 2023? Is that what we're doing? I'm at a point now where I have accepted. It is sad to say, I have accepted that there will be nothing good to come out of this administration over the last 2 years. And that acceptance is on the basis of their performance in the prior years. I want for them to make me shame. Yeah. I want this administration to say, you know what? We will do something for our Liberian people. I don't believe that it's going to happen, but if that's what they need to do. They need to start thinking about people. You got people building Halibut mansions to bury their body in with Wi-Fi and all sorts of. I mean, we have gone crazy in this country. Mansions everywhere. People, I mean, it's almost as though they all sense and sensibility have left us. The ridiculousness of this administration is at a level I have never seen before.
Thank you. You still didn't get the last part. How do we get this alternative leadership? Because the way you describe this current government, we need an alternative. How?
We get the alternative leadership, and like I said before, by the citizens looking into what matters to them. What is it you want to see your leaders do? And looking at the leader that you are electing and saying, is this someone who can give me what I need? Is this someone who can prepare the way for my children to get education?
Wadei, I mean, pin me a scenario where the citizen, maybe, let's take Sino County, for instance, that the citizen will come together and say just what you're saying.
It's not the citizens coming together.
How would that look like?
This is on an individual level. It is not citizens coming together.
And who's going to drive that? Who's going to educate them to think on that level?
I think Powell gave the answer to that earlier. All of this that we're doing here is developing that environment for this sort of things to happen. I don't know what is Sino County. I don't know who's in Sino County, but I know that there is somebody in Sino County who is able to pick up this mantle and say, my people, we got to do better. There is somebody and some bodies in every county. You don't need to be a politician. You don't need to be involved in the political space. Leadership is not about politics. Leadership is about inspiring your people to do better, championing the way forward from them, and helping them understand how to get to that next level. We have these people in the country. I say to my friends all the time, and I have one of my friends, I'm from the private sector, believe it or not, I'm not a politician. And I say to my friends all the time, listen, you have to get involved in certain spaces in order to get the message out.
Yeah.
It's not that you want to be in a space, but that is your duty. It is your responsibility to Liberia. Once again, be kind to Liberia.
Thank you. Call, what are the options available? Because at the end of the day, somebody got to do it, right? Somebody got to be the leader. Somebody got to bell the cat, as they would say proverbially. What are our options?
Our options as far as leaders?
Yes. Or leaders or leadership.
Oh, we have so many options. Wadei is an option. We have many brilliant Liberian people, mostly in the private sector in that country, mostly in the private sector outside of the country. And there's nothing wrong with looking within and without. We have to, as citizens, stop this thing with the envy and the infighting about, oh, this person, a Congo person, oh, this person comes from this place, or oh, this person had to run away from war and let me tell you, the Liberians who left during the war as refugees, some of those people came to the United States from villages. They didn't even speak English when they got here. I've been in this country my entire life. I was here when the influx of refugees came. I saw people who were teenagers and didn't know their ages. They didn't know when they were born. They didn't have birthdays. Not just one person. A lot of people who came to this country didn't even know their birthday. They invented their date of birth because they were from such a rural place. Those things were not important and not culturally significant. Keeping track of the day and the date the child was born and things like that. You know, I saw this, and I grew up in a Liberian community in Minnesota, and I never knew that there were Liberians that didn't know their birthday. I never knew that there were Liberians that didn't speak English until this influx of refugees came. And I remember being a young person, a teenager myself, working with other young people and trying to, we had different things that we did in Minnesota. I'm not gonna get into all of that, but long story short, the people that came that couldn't speak English, some of them are nurse practitioners today, teachers today. Some of them are working on their PhDs today. I mean, imagine being probably around 15, 16 years old. You don't know your actual age. You have to learn to read at that age. You have to learn to speak English at that age. You overcome all of those things. You become educated in this country. And your heart, your mind, and soul is in Liberia. You go to Liberia, and the people want to treat you like a pariah, like some kind of, you know, invader, for coming home, for making use of your time as a refugee. We have to stop this. We have to stop this. And those people are resources. Because if you spend the first 15 years of your life in a rural village, and you come here, you get a first world education, you are that bridge. And I tell my friends that all the time. I'm not gonna call their names on here, but there's a few people that I know, and I say it to them, you're the bridge. You grew up in conflict. You grew up behind Boinjama. You are the bridge. And this is important. And we talk about having a summit on Liberia and how we're gonna put the country together. These people are critical. People like Wadei, who grew up in Liberia and came from a family that was able to instill a sense of patriotism in her. Wadei Powell does not have to live in Liberia. Wadei Powell does not have to work in Liberia. Most of our peers are not in that country because they don't have to be. Most of our peers are living in developed countries, in the suburbs, you know, raising their children in the best environments on the planet because they, you know, that's what it is. They don't even talk about Liberia. Do you know how many Liberians are powerful corporate executives in this country, making policy? They're lawyers, they're doctors, they're all kinds of professionals. We have a serious brain drain problem. We should start talking about how to draw upon those resources. Not only welcome them, but ask for their help.
Absolutely.
Ask for their help. That's what Sierra Leone did. That is what Rwanda did. Liberians are all over social media praising Rwanda. What are Rwandans are doing this? Do you know what Paul Kagame did? The first thing he did, he didn't even welcome them. He reached out and begged and gave incentives. Y'all come home.
Yep.
Y'all come home. We will give you land. We'll give you space. We need our minds. Yep. And the Rwandan citizens themselves, y'all come home. Our children. Liberians have to get rid of this envy, the spite, the hatred. And on the reverse side, the condescendence that I see coming from people. I'm going to address this issue today. People who just came to America the other day, just got off the plane the other day. They didn't even come here during the war. Came here literally just the other day. Have the audacity to be condescending to people who survived through that war in Liberia, managed to go to the University of Liberia or some other school, Zion or some other school, and make something of themselves. And then they have the audacity to sit and be condescending to those people and sit in America and start talking about things they don't even understand. Oh, we want to do this and shit. When in your entire lifetime have you ever heard of a person born in Liberia being denied any rights of a Liberian citizen? It is a non-issue. Johnny just come to America, people sitting there fighting for dual citizenship. Shut up. You even lose your accents. You can still speak Loma, you can still speak Gribble. Then you there talking about, you think you'll go home and anybody will tell you you're not Liberian? It's so annoying. And the thing is, you have, and the other thing I want to mention, these are the same people, some of them don't even go to school while they've been here. But they go to Liberia, they have undue privilege. Just because they've traveled. You are at no disadvantage because you lived in America. It is a lie, y'all stop telling it. They try to bring it up when this brilliant young, gifted young man, Joseph Fambula, went as far as he did, fifth fastest human being, man in the human being. Because the men are faster than the women, that's just a fact. The fifth fastest human being in the world, 19 years old, ran for Liberia. They're bringing up their dual citizenship nonsense. The boy ran for Liberia. Shut up. Stop trying to look for issues where there's no issue. Those same people, they didn't go to school when they came here. They're working, doing God knows what. They get a little tax return to go like, bro. They're condescending. They want to bluff the people. Come on. We have to change our attitudes.
So it's on both sides. So let's come to
side. Nobody is. I lived in Liberia. Ask Wadei. Call, sometimes I wear jeans. Sometimes you see me in Gorbachev Market. I don't care. I don't have anything to prove to anyone. It doesn't take anything away from my dignity to interact with the same people that I'm part of. This is who we are. We have to stop these little petty divisions and things like that, and humble ourselves on both sides. But I just wanted to address that bizarre dual citizenship obsession that people have. I don't have the obsession. If I call,
but you're just trying to throw a jab at dual citizenship because that was not, you're trying to just turn it into that. I said you're just trying to throw a jab at dual citizenship because this
you're already dual citizens. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
If the Supreme Court ruled on this issue, if you're a Liberian, you're a Liberian. Nobody can take your citizenship. They can strip it from you.
But once again, I think that this is some of the context.
Because can I stop you because I want some names.
It's accurate, but a lot of Liberians are not aware that the Supreme Court has ruled on this issue.
I know.
That ruling is different, but I don't want us to get into it.
It's different, Dennis. It's different.
The Supreme Court ruled that
Dennis,
you have due process. Okay,
Dennis,
nobody should just arbitrarily say, "Hey, you're not Liberian," until they can prove it in court.
And even if they do, which has never happened before, right? The dual citizenship referendum, which was going to create a second class of citizenship, strip Liberians who were actually born in Liberia of their birthright.
Right.
That was extremely dangerous.
And I don't want us to go there because I want one last issue. We're talking about alternative leadership. Election is coming, 2023. Do we have people? Because somebody got to be president. So all this alternative leadership talk that we've talked for almost 1 hour, 30 minutes now, do we have someone in mind who we think can represent that? Wadei, let me put you on the spot.
Well, you really want to put me on the spot tonight, huh? We're not going to do that, Dennis, and you know the reason why we're not going to do that.
I know, but I will try.
You already know who I support. It's a conversation that we have private. I belong to an institution, and I'm very cognizant of the way I conduct myself in certain situations. So that will remain private until the appropriate time for that. However, I will say that I have arrived at my decision based on thorough research and analysis on what I believe is needed to take the country forward, and what I believe the person or the candidate that I have chosen to support is capable of doing.
Call. If you look at the slate, do we have anyone, or we should keep looking?
What is our population? We have, they say 5 million, 6 million. I think we have at least, 500,000 people that can do a better job than the current president. So at least, anyone, that the citizens choose, I think will be an improvement. But I think it's the citizens' responsibility to make sure that whoever they elect will do exactly what they, because elections are not the end, right? Part of your civic responsibility is to continuously pressure your elected officials to do what you want them to do. And that's the failure I see from the current citizen of Liberia, is that they elected Weah to do something, and he's not doing it. They elected the representatives and senators to do things that they're not doing, and they're not doing anything about it. They're sitting down acting like, well, we'll do now to the president. The president is not the country.
Right.
And the country.
So am I hearing anybody but Weah? Is that what I'm hearing?
Not anybody but Weah, but many people are better than many.
Let me bring in a few comments. Let me bring in a few comments and then we can close. But
at Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
welcome back. Let's get to a few of our comments. Propo King say, Wadei, if you're waiting for CDC to make you shame, you will not be shamed just now. Sorry.
That's so wrong.
The A. Daniels alternative in a general sense does not equate to better or worse, but when brought up in a political environment, it means better than the incumbent. Jerome Gilman, who called earlier, says the conversation of collectivism is an ideal that requires education. Your literacy rate should be an indicator. Madam Powell, I'm especially enthusiastic when it comes to coordination. You know, our various disciplines and common sense help us to have divergent priorities. How we go about those priorities bring about the coordination needed at a time. So we cannot use only one defined idea in a room of 10 persons for development. Thanks. John Mawolo, I think the problems we face with is the factor of our ignorance, which is a factor of our education added on by the war. Until we are re-educated to make decisions today to better the future, we will keep on running behind our own tails.
Sure.
Yeah, that's yeah, Wilson. Whenever you develop a formula for inaccurate and or insufficient information, you will definitely err in your alternative leadership formula. Remember, there is a first time for everything. Not everybody agree with you. And Alan's Alson Samba, you know, there is something that runs to my mind each time after observing presidential leadership. One may think there is character that deals with internal and external. Two more comments and then we can. Johnson Brown, we don't heal by dividing and calling names. Francis say, Carl, please list some of those history books we need to avail ourselves of. So Carl, you got a short list?
Message me. We have a lot of, we're creating a digital library so we can share some things. Y'all message me.
Cooper Kwame say, and that is why Firestone did not have a high school and university were not built in what is known as the hinterland. By the way, Cooper Kwame worked for Firestone. Most of the education was geared towards grooming people to work for companies. He agreed with Carl. The government did it to itself by not properly educating its citizens for leadership and for economic and social viability. Jimmy Eastbound, when will we end our tolerance about supporting unethical behavior because is someone we identify with. So those are a few of the comments. And Kude Williams say, "What is sorry for your sister?"
Thanks, Kude.
Desmond Tutu Finley say, "Good day, ladies." And all right. Christopher Tobasi say, "We have to rewrite our Liberian history." Joseph Conter want to wholeheartedly disagree with you that isn't true. William R. Tower didn't go to CWA. I don't think that was the point, that every leader went to CWA. I didn't go to CWA. You know, as great as I am now, I went to Monrovia College. Go Monkeys. Let me get your reactions to the comments, and then you can also wrap that into your closing comments. Thank you, Carl and Wadei, for the show tonight. Carl, you go first.
Closing comments.
Yeah.
I think that there's a Ghanaian bird that's looking backward. I forgot what it's called. There's a name for it. But that is a profound thing, because you have to always know where you come from to understand where you are and know where you need to go. The more you go into Liberian history and really read the great thinkers that we had in the 19th century, Edward Wilmot Blyden, all of these brilliant minds, when you start to study their vision for what Liberia should be, it's so relevant today. They were so before their time. That is our roadmap. They painted a future picture for us that was derailed. If you go back and you see the vision they had of Black excellence, you know, these were the founders of the concept of Pan-Africanism. It was born right in Liberia. Most Liberians don't know that. Most Liberians that run around talking about the Moja or the Pan-Africanists, they hate Liberia because they don't understand that the concepts, the fruits of Pan-Africanism, the seeds were sown on the soil of the Republic of Liberia. And whether or not it was sabotaged or derailed is not the issue. The roadmap is there, the future picture is there. We need to dust it off. We need to resurrect our heroes for our children to know that they come from something, they come from someone, they are a part of something great, that Liberia is not something to be ashamed of. It is a miraculous, surviving, living tribute to the greatness of all of our ancestors. The fact that we still have our sovereignty, we were never colonized. The fact that we are still discussing politics, and the fact that we are able to talk about change and moving ourselves forward, that by itself is a triumph. And we have so much work to do. Let us pick up the torch that was left for us to carry and move forward, not only for ourselves, but for our children and those that are yet to come, because that is what they did for us. Had the people that came before us been the failures that we think they were, we would not have Liberia, we would not be Liberian, we would be French or Sierra Leonean or something else. So always respect the root if you are going to respect the fruit. If you think that the root is rotten, then what will you think of yourself? So I love the fact that the listeners are talking about history. It is extremely important, because that's where you get your identity, that's where you get your self-esteem, that's where you get your marching orders. So I will leave something like a comment with my, so that you can inbox me in Messenger. And when I get to it, just send me your email address. You don't have to do plenty of talking, and I will send you guys a list. Tell me what books you want. I'll send it to you for free. That's my own contribution.
Thank you. And it starts right here on Focus on Liberia. A few more comments. Let me slip in there, because somebody is not letting you off the hook, Carl. Say, Carl, I disagree with you that the people are failing the state. Proper education is the function of the state. We are not educated enough to understand this democracy. Christopher say, thank you for the show, Mr. Ja. Mobedo say, great show. Salamantu agree, great show. And Carl, I have something here for you. Okay, yeah, from Wilson. Sankofa is the name of the bird, the
Oh,
Ghanaian bird.
yes, that's right. Sankofa.
Yeah, I don't know why. I wanted to hear about Liberian bird, but anyway.
I mean, that's the universal bird for the whole Pan-African
Yeah,
world.
we
It's
got
Sankofa.
that.
Thank you.
We got that same bird in Glade, Nimba County, but
Look
maybe
at
Walter Bonnicali Jr. said, thanks for a wonderful and informative presentation. Liberia can truly rise again with the right and nurturing leadership. What are your final words or your final comments?
My final comments for tonight.
Yeah, just for tonight.
Be kind to Liberia. As many opportunities as I have to say this, to indoctrinate this motto into people's heads, to get people to start thinking about what that means for them. And it does mean different things to different people. I need for us to start putting Liberia first. It's a difficult concept when you think about all of the other things that people have to think about, putting food on the table for the children, sending their children to school, healthcare, you name it. We have those issues that we have to think about living in Liberia. But at the end of the day, if we don't put Liberia first, we are going to continuously have those issues. So it's about making the sacrifices now for a better Liberia down the road, or consciously deciding to stay in the slump that we are in and have the continuation of what we have going on right now. What does being kind to Liberia first mean? It means putting the needs of Liberia first. It means finding ways to get together and figure out how we can unite each other, how we can start to learn and be tolerant about somebody's ideas, even though we don't share those ideas, about other people's opinions on what our history is, because everybody has a differing opinion. Because let's face it, our history was not passed down to us properly. So of course, a lot of it is going to be based on hearsay. And my mom told me this, and my pop told me this. For some of us who grew up without even nobody telling us anything, we had to go find it out in the history books. But let's do all that we can to be tolerant, because if we're not tolerant with each other, we'll never get to understand that we all share some kind of commonality. As different as we may be, there is something that is common for all of us. If we look at that commonality, which is that we are Liberians first before we are anything else, if we only focus on that commonality, we can get so much further. The last thing I want to say, as we start to gear up to elect our new slate of leaders, be it representatives, senators, presidents, vice presidents, think very hard about what you want for the future of this country, and then ask yourself, is this person that I'm going to cast my vote for the person that can give me what I want? And I'm hoping that this is the basis on which Liberians will make their decision as they elect the new leaders coming in 2023. How does this person benefit Liberia? Not how does this person benefit me personally?
Thank you. And you know what? I got breaking news here. I got a memo. There are some pro-government women who don't agree with everything that you've said. And so they are invited next Thursday for Tough Talking Thursday to make the case against everything you've stated here tonight. You don't want to make that. I got that memo today. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock, we're going to have the literary hour, and the topic, what is in a name? The power of names and naming. Of course, your host and co-host, Jackie Sayer, and Professor K. Moses Namwe will be here. Then on Sunday, we're going to have the retired bishop of the Methodist Church, Reverend Dr. John G. Innes, here to talk about the church and the state, where they all merge and where they differ. We're going to talk all that. I want to thank you again for coming. I want to thank all our viewers for staying here with us always. At Focus on Liberia, we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. One thing, we never close our broadcast by playing the song that says, we are all Liberians. Whether you came by boat, whether you came on foot, or you even flew to Liberia, we are Liberians. Whether you support the ruling party or the opposition. And you know one thing? We call our people opposition, but in America, they don't call their opposition. They don't call the Republican opposition. So whether you support this party or that party, we are all Liberians. And we must do whatever it takes to make our country the glorious land of liberty. Good night, and God bless you.
We are Liberians.